opening statement, and then
Yeah, I'll just kind of say something real quick, and then
okay.
you open it up. And,
All right.
um, Clayton, whenever you're ready. And then David and TJ, once you guys get framed up, if you guys want to come over and sit here, because we only got the one mic. Hello, everyone, and welcome to all those watching at home on Facebook Live as we're here with head coach Mike Houston here on National Signing Day. The Dukes completed their 2018 recruiting class with a total of 16 signees, 3 today to go with the 13 that signed back in December. Coach Houston will open it up with an opening statement, and then we'll open the floor for questions from members of the media. Coach, the floor is yours.
Well, before we get started, I just want to say a thank you to Dave DeGuzman for all of his coverage, assistance, and friendship over the last couple of years being here. We wish him the best of luck as he transitions on in his career. I'm sure WHSV will be sad to see you leave, but excited for your future. So thanks for everything you've done for us. So an exciting day today on National Signing Day. It is a bit different signing day from years past. Usually you spend the entire month of January holding your breath, trying to hold on to commitments to get to this day, and then it's a rash of fax machines and copiers and emails and every other form of communication to get letters of intent and scholarship paperwork back in and get them certified so that we can talk about them. With us signing 13 players back in December on the early signing day, it did make January a little less stressful to a degree, but then the players that we were signing today became even more important. And the thing is, with the quality of the 3 players we signed today, there was a lot more attention and competition for those same guys. So you had a lot of schools chasing the same few players that were left. So we're excited about adding Rakeem Davis, running back athlete out of Charlottesville, Virginia, Q Reed, safety out of Concord, North Carolina, and Tony Thurston, D lineman out of Louisa, Virginia, to our list of 13 from back in December. All 3 of these young men are dynamic players. They will be assets to our program. We're really excited about what each of them brings. We're excited about the kind of people that each of the 3 are. And now we look at our class of 16 signees. We're very pleased with this group. When you look at the breakdown of the group, probably the thing that stands out the most to me and the thing that I'm most pleased about is 9 of our 16 signees are from the state of Virginia. We talked about the Commonwealth being a priority to us, that we wanted to recruit our home state, and I think we've put our actions out there to match up our words. And I think it speaks volumes to the level of talent that there is in the state of Virginia. We expect these players to be impact players in a fairly short time for us here. So, the class as a whole, it breaks down into 8 offense, 8 defense. That wasn't necessarily by design. That's just kind of how it turned out. But we do feel like we addressed our major needs that we needed from this class. So excited about this class. Excited for recruiting to be over with for right now. The coaches have, between the run to the national championship game and recruiting, the coaches have been hard at it since last July. So everybody can catch their breath a little bit now, at least for a day or two before we start spring practice prep, which is right around the corner. But we're really, really pleased with the 16 players that we've added to our roster moving forward. Questions from the media?
I know when we spoke in December that you had mentioned the offensive line and defensive backfield were priorities. Did you feel like you further accomplished that with this signing day because you signed Q Reed?
Yeah. And we spoke about the players back in December that we signed there. We feel really, really good about our offensive line moving forward. Q Reed is a special player. He's a fantastic young man, and I really enjoyed getting to know him and his mother and his grandfather through the recruiting process. They are the type of people that we want associated with our program. Q is a very mature kid. and I shouldn't even call him a kid because he is. You cannot believe you're speaking to a high school senior when you're speaking to him. He has a lot of maturity, has a good head on his shoulders. Coach Glass has done a great job there at J.M. Robinson High School with the program, and he's done a great job with the young men in his program and developing him. So I credit, his family and Coach Glass for developing him to be the person that he is. But you put his athletic ability together with his maturity, and I think Q is a guy that's going to come in and compete pretty quickly for playing time.
Coach, first off, thank you for the kind words. It's been a pleasure covering your team over the last 2 seasons. With Rakeem, I'm going to assume it didn't take much convincing for him. How much of a role did Richard play in getting him, and where do you see him making an impact, and how soon?
Well, and much with Devin and Brandon Ravenel. I mean, when Rakeem comes here, Rakeem's going to be Rakeem. There's no doubt. He's not Richard. He's not Richard's little brother. He's Rakeem. With that being said, I would be lying if I did not say Richard did not play a factor in this. Richard Davis is one of the most outstanding young men that I've ever been around. He is just a quality person, and his family, the way they have raised the 2 boys, that's a great home. So I know the character that Rakeem's going to bring. That had a factor in us recruiting him. There's no doubt. Rakeem's a dynamic player. He's a very explosive player, much like Richard. He's a little bit bigger than Richard, okay, but he has that explosive big play ability. So we think in time he's going to develop into, a similar kind of playmaker both on offense and on special teams that Richard was for us last year.
What were the biggest differences, I guess, post early signing day and your month of January compared to years past? Obviously, I'm sure you're able to kind of just focus on the guys that you wanted to sign today.
Right. Well, we did. I mean, it was a lot of different things. I mean, first we did some official visits in season, but with how long our season ran, our big official visit weekend was in January. So you got here in January with that weekend, and you have, 11 guys or 10 guys or how many it were that had already signed that were here that weekend that they're already signed. So it's more now just making sure they get the answers they need, different things with campus. But then those guys are helping you recruit the 2 or 3 that you have that aren't signed yet. So that was kind of a neat dynamic right there. But, yeah, the focus was on the unsigned players right here. It gave us a little bit of a jump start on our preferred walk-ons, which we had a big weekend with preferred walk-ons a couple of weeks ago. And got a lot of commitments from those guys. We can't really talk about those yet until everything's processed with admissions. But we also got a jump start on 2019 class, and we did a lot of junior recruiting throughout the month of January. So now when we go out in May, you kind of already know a lot of the guys that you're going to look at for next year's class, because I do think the early signing period is going to speed the calendar up, speed the clock up for everybody across the country. Ask me in a couple of years if I like the early signing day or not. I don't know if you can properly evaluate it just yet, but it is changing the way we recruit.
Coach, did you find yourself competing against many of the other CAA schools, not just for today's commits, but those in December? And aside from CAA, what other conferences do you typically kind of go up against when you're trying to get these character men?
Well, I think regionally, obviously we're going to compete against the CAA and the Southern Conference for a lot of our signees. We did compete against mid-major FBS schools from virtually all the Eastern Seaboard conferences, whether it be the Sun Belt Conference USA, AAC, whomever. We did compete against some ACC schools for a couple of our signees, but we want to be competing against those level of schools for our players. I think JMU is a place that can attract the very best talent that there is in the state of Virginia and regionally. And so if we're not competing against schools like that for our players, then we're not going after the right players.
Focusing on your Virginia recruits, I guess what is unique about them? What's the kind of character that this group has compared to, I guess, recruits that you would find from other states?
Well, I think there's a lot of pride about the level of football in the state of Virginia. I promise you the 757 thinks that, so because that's all I hear in our locker rooms, the argument over 804, 757, whatever it is, all the area code chatter in there. So, but I think the kids have a lot of pride about where they're from. I think they have a lot of pride about the state of Virginia. We talk about, for our program, we talk about winning the state of Virginia because you do have in-state rivalries that are, some of the top schools in our league and regionally. So it's a big deal for us, whether it be Richmond or William and Mary or Norfolk State or whomever. We play a lot of the in-state schools, and that creates some stuff between the players on our roster that know players on their rosters and that kind of stuff. So I think that, having 9 signees from the state is probably going to increase some of the intensity of the rivalry with the in-state schools. I think it'll kind of bring a lot of the pride of the state, when we travel out of state for conference games and non-conference games. And then you have a little bit of, family rivalry going on with our opener with Camden Wise and his brother Carson being the place kicker for NC State, and Camden coming in competing for our place kicking job. So, we're excited about the players that we signed in state, and we made a commitment when we got here to the coaches in the state of Virginia. And I spoke at the state coaches clinic my first spring here and told them that we're going to recruit the state, and I think we backed that up.
Tony Thurston, just what do you see in him, and what is he going to bring to your team?
He's a big, strong, hard-nosed kid, and that's the thing that everybody loved about him. That's Coach Hansen. He was the big proponent of Tony's, and he's the recruiting coach. He's also the position coach. But the big thing that Coach Hansen just stayed on was just what a tough, hard-nosed player he is. He has tremendous size. He's a good athlete for a guy of his size. He comes from a great home, mom and dad, and just the way they've raised him and instilled values in him. I think he will bring that hard-nosed mentality, to our D-line room. We'll see how quickly he can play. We're optimistic that maybe he can contribute as a freshman, but we'll see.
And you have a couple of these kids already on campus with Jamari and Matt. What have you learned about them? I know you can't interact with them totally, but what have you learned about them so far?
Well, Jamari's adapting to college life. Those are always the ones that worry you, is the spring first semester freshman. The rest of his buddies are back home getting ready for prom. He's, going to classes and going to Big John, and that's been a reality check there, the workouts and everything. But he's adapting well, doing well in his classes, working hard. This is going to give him a jump start, from all the other freshmen of being here for the spring, being here for spring practice. But he's exactly what we thought he was. He's a high-character young man, comes from a good family. He's doing well socially around campus and fitting in well. Matt's an older player and a quality player. He's going to be a guy that you're going to see this spring compete for a starting job really quickly. Big John is working him pretty hard, trying to get a little bit more size on him. But we feel like he's going to be a big contributor for our team this fall.
Coach, I know the focus is obviously on signing day, but it's kind of the first time we're able to catch up with you since Frisco. How quickly did you process that and have already looked forward to 2018?
I don't know what exactly process means, but everybody still has a little bit of a sour taste in our mouth from the way the game ended. We got the runner-up trophy the other day, and so I've stuck that right in the middle of the weight room for everybody to look at every day, because that's not what we're after. We didn't go down there to get a runner-up trophy, and we're not pleased with having one. Our goal is to go down there and get the championship trophy. So they're going to stare at that trophy from right now to the beginning of the season, because this team's going to have a shot next year. Our focus right now is NC State. Probably our focus right now is ourselves, but our focus is going to be NC State, and it's going to be the CAA. But we got high expectations for our young football team, and it is young. We had our team meeting last week, kind of get our focus ready for off-season workouts, really ramping up. And you look out, and the thing that sticks out to me is, Simeon and Raven and Kyrie and Brian and Clue and Stenny, and they're not there anymore. That front row's been there for a couple of years now, and it's not there anymore. And so I see fresh faces, and that's good and bad. The negative is those older kids that you had those strong leadership and relationships with, they're gone. The positive is we have a very talented group of young players coming back. Now we've got to have a great spring of developing potential into production, and they've got to understand exactly what that means, because we get out on that field, I promise you, we've got a big target on our back still again this year. So as far as processing that's how we've processed it right now. So we're excited for spring practice and excited for our season opener next fall at NC State.
Coach, just kind of looking at the evolution of recruiting and how social media now kind of plays a bigger factor than probably ever before. You see kids taking pictures when they're on their visits or graphics being made for different kids. Talk about how that changes recruiting, and does it force kids to be a little bit more honest with coaches since things are more visible to you guys?
I don't think there's much hidden, but I also think without Twitter you can't recruit anymore. So I don't know how to use Instagram or Snapchat or anything like that. But Twitter and I guess Facebook a little bit have really become big parts of recruiting, good and bad. I mean, we look at recruits' Twitter pages, and we want to make sure that the right content's on there that's reflective of the character that we want from our student athletes here at James Madison. And it's also a way that you can communicate with the players within the rules at various times during the year. And so it's a great communication piece there too. The other thing you can see is exactly how serious a player is about your institution by looking at their Twitter account. So social media has become a big part of the recruiting process, and the visits and the graphics and all that stuff is changing almost daily, and it's really putting an emphasis on, kind of resources that you have to put into that if you're going to be competitive in recruiting moving forward.
Coach, TJ with WHSV here. You talk about recruiting. Not the best thing to do with recruiting usually is to win, and you guys have done a lot of that lately. How much did just being nationally exposed in these national championship games the last couple of years do some of the talking for you and the staff? Like, how much does that help you guys when you're out there?
Well, there's no doubt it helps us. Everybody wants to come to a winning program because you want that experience. And I think, having College Game Day, on our campus again this year, going out and winning the way we did that day, the CAA championships, the back-to-back trips to the national championship game, the exposure, Friday night, ESPN prime time, all those things factor in. To me, nothing takes the place of a packed Bridgeforth Stadium game day for recruits. When they show up, our game day atmosphere, almost seals the deal for recruits. But obviously winning is the big factor in that, because if you don't win, you don't have that kind of crowd. If you don't win, you don't have the rings and the trophies and things like that. So those are a lot of intrinsic things that kids look at. That being said, for me, the thing that I pride ourselves on, and I think the thing that's the most important to the parents, is the way the kids are treated when they get here. And we really try to sell that on the visits. It's just, a family atmosphere. We're serious about that. We're serious about the culture in our locker room. We're going to be heavily involved in our student athletes' lives, and we're going to take care of them as if they're our own, while they're here. And that's the big thing for me, and that's the big selling point for the parents. So you got the uniforms and the helmets and the rings for the kids. You got the education, the way their sons are treated for the parents.
Coach, now that you've got your kids all signed National Letters of Intent, and you'll have the preferred walk-ons joining your program this summer, any potential transfers you guys are still looking at, or how's kind of the makeup of the roster looking right now? Yeah,
you'll probably see a couple of young transfers at the end of the spring semester, and that's just, we have that opportunity. We're going to take advantage of that opportunity. I think it does take maybe a little bit of the stress off of, if you have a player that is injured or for whatever reason is no longer with the program, you're able to replace them after signing day. And the big thing is I like our older players in our program as far as our juniors, looking out. But I do think we can continue to supplement our roster with a couple of the right guys. So that's the big thing, is we're going to make sure we find the right guys if we add anybody else to our roster. But we're excited about our roster where it's at. If we had to play tomorrow, we would feel very good about it, and we would feel good about our chances and our opportunities to go out and be successful. Anything else? All right. Everybody have a good week. If anybody needs me, I will be close to the beach for the rest of the week. Go Dukes.